Hello, my name is Welcome to the Bearer of Bad News. I'm your host, Lore Bear, and I hate to be the bearer of bad news, so I won't. This is your weekly recap of positive news stories from around the world. Articles included in this broadcast were originally published from April 1st to 4th, 2026. The stories in this episode are sourced from various news outlets and publications. The Bearer of Bad News does not conduct independent fact-checking or verification of these stories. Listeners are encouraged to review original sources for accuracy and complete context. We are not responsible for the accuracy or content of third-party reporting, which is a fancy way of saying, I read it, I didn't report it. And here are this week's stories. First up, Dolly Parton makes generational and transformational donation to East Tennessee Children's Hospital, named after her. Dolly Parton is being praised for her generous contributions to East Tennessee's Children's Hospital, which is now named after her. Following news that the health center would be renamed in honor of the country legend as Dolly Parton's Children's Hospital, its president and chief executive officer, Matt Schaefer, opened up about the surreal moment of receiving the Jolene Hitmaker's donation. In the interview with Chief Healthcare Executive on Monday, March 30th, Schaefer praised Parton's incredibly disarming personality. It was truly humbling, and to hear her, in her own words, talk about the importance of this to her community, to this organization, and to children was super affirming, he said of meeting Parton, 80. Schaefer spoke about how, with the 9-to-5 artist donation, he hoped to expand the hospital's roster of doctors, invest in new programs and technology, and increase fundraising. I think anytime you have someone of her stature, someone of her standing, certainly in this region, across the United States, across the world, honestly, and to have the halo effect of everything she stood for in her life, including her love for children in particular, it just is fantastic for the future of our mission, he said of Parton. While Schaefer played coy when it came to revealing the amount Parton donated, he said the sum was generational and transformational. What I can tell you is that she has made a generational and transformational commitment to children's and its mission, and that commitment is something that goes beyond our wildest expectations. That is beyond generous, and will be a lifeline for this mission for now and for years to come, he said. Schaefer added, "We are excited about and humbled by her willingness to do so." He noted that having the hospital renamed after her will allow them to tell a broader story about the depth and breadth of services here, to imagine how we can continue to expand those services, and accelerates how we should think about what our responsibility is to the patients and families that trust us today and invariably will trust us tomorrow. The partnership with Parton will amplify and accelerate some of those initiatives in a way that we could not have done otherwise without that type of support and backing from awareness across the region, for providers, for clinicians, for patients, for families, and for referring providers, added Schaefer. In February, Parton shared an Instagram reel announcing that the East Tennessee Children's Hospital has officially been renamed to the Dolly Parton Children's Hospital. In a video message and collaborative post with the Today Show and the official hospital page, she said, "I have always believed that every child deserves a fair chance to grow up healthy, hopeful, and surrounded with love. That belief is what brought me together with the incredible folks at East Tennessee Children's Hospital." Parton continued, "For nearly 90 years, their teams have provided compassionate and talented care. They see children not just as patients, but as precious lives, each with a story and a future. I am so excited to share East Tennessee Children's Hospital is becoming, guess what? Dolly Parton's Children's Hospital. Yay!" In New England, catching climate data along with fish. When Bob Hershey Jr., a Maine lobsterman, pulls up his traps, he gets more than tasty crustaceans. He's collecting vital details about the changing ocean environment. Mr. Hershey, who also dives for sea urchins, is among nearly 150 fishermen who have installed temperature sensors on their traps or trawl nets from Maine to North Carolina as part of a program run by a nonprofit organization with help from the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. The soda can-sized sensors are dragged along the seafloor, giving fishermen and scientists a three-dimensional map of the ocean rather than just conditions on the surface, which can be checked using satellites or thermometers on boats. The data is continuously collected and fed into regional weather and climate models. "The fishing industry can collect data that nobody else can get to," said George Maynard, a marine resource management specialist at the National Marine Fisheries Service, a branch of NOAA. "It's a cheap way to collect a lot of oceanographic data to improve those models. The sensors record water temperature and oxygen levels, and soon they will also record salinity, an important indicator of large-scale changes in ocean currents that influence weather patterns. While the data is valuable to researchers, it's also helping Mr. Hershey and others decide the best places to fish. I'm trying to figure out how to be more efficient, Mr. Hershey, 55, who has deployed 4 sensors on his 600 lobster traps and has been studying the temperature changes in relation to the size of his catches. I'm trying to establish a pattern of where they are with a certain temperature. As New England's fishing industry faces declining catches, restrictions to protect endangered right whales, and a rapidly changing ocean ecosystem, the data collection program is fostering connections between fishermen and scientists, 2 groups with a history of occasional conflict. This is providing a way for fishermen to interact with the agency that is less combative than in the past, Dr. Maynard said. It is giving them a way to document their experiences on the water where they are believed and not told you're being anecdotal. In addition to informing marine forecasts, the data collected is being used by federal scientists to assess the health of commercial fisheries for lobster and black sea bass, Dr. Maynard said. That information is used to set government limits on the amount of seafood that fishermen can harvest. Academic scientists are also using the data, feeding it into a database of global climate measurements compiled by the World Meteorological Organization, a branch of the United Nations. And the U.S. Coast Guard is applying the data to search and rescue missions, Dr. Maynard said. When a sensor tied to one of Mr. Hershey's traps breaks the surface, the sensor connects via Bluetooth to a tablet-sized terminal on the boat's bridge. The tablet downloads the data and then sends it via cellular connection to a remote computer server. Fishermen can view their own data and a regional map of conditions. The data is anonymized to prevent fishermen in the program from knowing where their neighbors have set nets or traps. The program began in 2001 but expanded in 2024 with a $2 million grant from the state of Massachusetts, followed by $200,000 from the Nature Conservancy and $120,000 from NOAA. There's now a waiting list among fishermen for the $5,000 package of sensors, software, and tablets, which is paid by the program. The sensors have collected 23 million temperature records to date, according to Aaron Pelletier, the executive director of the Gulf of Maine Lobster Foundation, which maintains the devices and compiles the data. It's a pretty big data set, she said. Dave Cassoni of Sandwich, Massachusetts, checks the sensor data to learn when areas of low oxygen might affect his lobster catch in Cape Cod Bay. Before, if you pulled a trap and there were dead animals in it, we didn't know what caused it, Mr. Cassoni said. Now, we know what is happening and when that is occurring right away. Since 2010, New England's fishing industry has been scrambling to adjust to the warming of the Gulf of Maine, which has been heating faster than 99% of the world's oceans as a result of climate change. The region's cod industry has collapsed. Shrimping in Maine has been on hold since 2014 because rising temperatures have diminished the population, and lobster catches, which rose for several years to record levels, plummeted in the past 4 years as the lobster population moved north to cooler Canadian waters. Up next, we have this South African mom sold her house, bought 34 tons of salt, and built a global brand. News24.com presents, when the world's salt brands were pouring chemicals into white powder and calling it seasoning, Samantha Skyring was sitting on a sand dune in northwest Namibia with a crocodile spear made from a bread knife lashed to a stick. Skyring, her partner, and a friend had been in the Namibian desert for 5 months with no real plan. They took a wrong turn up a dry riverbed, burned through their fuel, ended up 350 kilometers from the nearest town. They set up camp and decided to keep walking, leading them over a sand dune where the road simply ended. It was here that they found a raging, wide river on the other side, complete with white beaches, palm trees, and rock pools. We'd been in the desert for months, she said. To see gushing water was spectacular. It was like, okay, we've arrived in paradise. They decided to keep walking to the Skeleton Coast. Backpacks on and bread knife spear in hand with enough food for a week, they preheated with 3 liters of tea each morning and climbed into the dunes to avoid the crocodile-lined banks of the Kunini River below. And then there were the oryx. 2 bulls, mid-chase, came charging up the dune towards her and skidded to a stop because she was sitting directly in their path. The Namib Desert is 30,000 square kilometers, she says, and 2 oryx ran up a sand dune and skidded because I was sitting in their path. They didn't run that way. Literally, that was it. She didn't understand the significance at the time. That took a couple of years. Skyring calls these moments signposts. Small collisions between where Skyring calls these moments signposts, small collisions between where you are and where you're supposed to be going. The oryx, as it turned out, was pointing her somewhere specific. She didn't know it yet, but the animal that had just skidded to a halt in front of her would become the logo of a company that now sits on 3,500 restaurant tables and flies on JetBlue Airways. A roller coaster of a career. Skyring doesn't have a conventional career history. She has a series of experiments, some of which worked. Her parents had a financial crash when she was 13, so she went out and got 2 jobs. Her father then bought a business, an aircraft interior refurbishment company at Lanseria Airport, when she was 19 and put her in charge of 35 staff. At 21, she got married and started a kayaking company on Lake Malawi, and she lost the business and moved on. Then there were the London clubs and Cape Town festivals. A year living on a fleet parked on top of a signal hill, production management, an NGO called the 20,000 Drum Project that workshopped 30,000 kids across the country. When I have an idea, I don't put together a big business plan, she says. It's almost like you pop your own dream with an axe if you do. Her father never told her that an idea was a bad one, and she describes this as one of her greatest blessings, the belief that whenever she tried, she could do it. Then, in 2007, a colleague showed her something that changed the trajectory. A vast underground salt lake buried beneath the Kalahari Desert, an ancient rock strata that is 280 million years old, where 3 subterranean rivers replenish the source. From it comes 55 million tons of brine, born in a Wendy house. At this point, she was 8.5 months pregnant, her NGO had collapsed in the financial crisis, and her relationship was ending. Her colleague wanted to export the salt in bulk to Germany, and the father of her child wanted to ship it to Denmark, but Skyring had a better idea, and she took a leap. She sold her house and used the money to buy 34 tons of salt, moved into a 20 square meter wooden Wendy house with her 3-year-old, and started packing grinders on a little table. I was in survival mode. New single mom, which is a blessing. When coming up with a name for the brand, African salt felt too generic, she says. It could be from anywhere. Then the image of that masked creature on the dune from years ago came back to her. The oryx is endemic to the Kalahari, and the salt comes from the Kalahari, so she chose it as her logo. Her very first boyfriend once told her, if you can find a product that every single person uses every single day of their life, you found your business. Salt, it turned out, was exactly that. The grinder problem. There is an argument at the center of Oryx that Skyring has been making for 12 years, and she still finds it frustrating that it hasn't fully landed. Almost every salt grinder on a supermarket shelf is plastic, and salt is abrasive, so plastic grinder teeth wear down and end up in your food, which you then eat. The grinder then breaks, you throw it away, buy another one, and grind more plastic into your next meal. Plastic is an endocrine disruptor, she says. The cycle, as Skyring sees it, is absurd. We shouldn't be voluntarily eating plastic. Her solution is a ceramic grinder head that doesn't degrade, doesn't contaminate your food, and doesn't need to be replaced. You buy one Oryx grinder and refill it. Last year, that single design choice kept close to 817,000 bottles and heads out of landfills, the equivalent of 12 20-foot shipping containers of waste. 4 plastic grinders cost nearly the same amount as one Oryx grinder, and you've not only thrown away 4 plastic bottles in the same period, but the Oryx grinder produces no waste, she explains. I paraphrase that because they used South African currency and it wouldn't have made sense. But the message has been hard to get across. Skyring has tried stickers that look like awards. She's added a tag inside the lid that reads, "Hi, I'm a ceramic grinder head. Please don't throw me away." On the cap, refill, not landfill. This year, she's adding an inkjet code on the side and a message on the bottom. 4 different touch points on a single product, all trying to communicate the same thing. However, she says she's still struggling to get the message to land. She tells the story of how she gifted a box to a friend who opened it, pulled out the tag, and threw it away without reading it. It's an ongoing thing, she sighs. Himalayan salt, the beautiful pink phenomenon that got the world off table salt, is demineralized out of the mountains, leaving chemical residue and gunpowder energy in the crystals. She says the demand for it has driven communities to undercut each other for contracts, some earning as little as $3 to $4 per ton. The Kalahari salt, by contrast, is sun-dried in 4 weeks with nothing added, and the communities around the pan receive a percentage of the proceeds, she said. Oryx donates to Dr. Zach Bush's Project Biome, a regenerative agriculture initiative, and slips a QR code for the project under every sachet that flies on JetBlue, around 2 million packets a year. Every sprinkle of Oryx on someone's food is a homeopathic dose of this mineral-rich, vibrant salt, she says, and if you start questioning the quality of your salt, there's a good chance you start questioning the source of everything else you're eating. Up next, smartphone-powered water test detects waste contamination in under 1 minute. From interestingengineering.com, for many communities, water safety is still a guessing game. A clear stream or tap does not guarantee it is free from harmful contamination. Testing often takes hours or even a full day, which slows down response during emergencies. That delay can increase exposure risks and complicate decisions for public health officials. Researchers in Germany have now developed a portable tool that can detect contamination in under a minute using only a drop of water and a smartphone. Access to reliable water testing remains uneven worldwide. Many regions lack laboratory infrastructure or trained personnel. Even in developed settings, delays in testing can complicate decisions during floods, storms, or infrastructure failures. Quick answers often matter most in these situations. The new rapid test, developed at the Federal Institute for Materials Research and Testing, BAM, targets this gap. It detects urobilin, a compound linked to human and animal waste. The body produces urobilin during hemoglobin breakdown and releases it through excretion. Its presence in water signals possible contamination and helps identify unsafe sources. The system uses a reactive test strip that emits light when it encounters the molecule. This optical response allows users to identify contamination within seconds. The process avoids the long turnaround time seen in conventional microbiological analysis. It also reduces reliance on centralized testing facilities. Smartphone-based detection. The device integrates directly with a smartphone, removing the need for specialized tools. A small LED module housed in a 3D printed attachment connects to the device. The phone powers the light source while the camera captures the strip's luminescence in real time. The test follows a simple drop and detect approach. Users place a single drop of water on the strip and observe the result through the phone. The system does not require additional chemicals or preparation strips. This makes it easier to deploy in remote or resource-limited environments. In controlled comparisons, the method showed strong sensitivity and reliability. It detects very low concentrations of urobilin, making it effective for early contamination signals. The design also limits user error, which can affect traditional testing methods. The system also performed well in practical testing. The rapid test was successfully validated using real water samples from rivers as well as the inflow and outflow of a Berlin wastewater treatment plant, explains Swayam Prakash, who developed the rapid test as a Marie Curie fellow at BAM together with Kanat Rurak, an expert in chemical and optical sensing. Even under complex environmental conditions with natural interfering substances, urobilin was reliably detected. Field use and global impact. The system's portability makes it suitable for field operations, emergency response, and rural deployment. It can support water monitoring in developing regions and crisis zones where lab access is limited. Relief teams and local agencies could use it for faster assessments on the ground. The technology also enables digital evaluation, allowing results to be stored, analyzed, or shared instantly. This feature could support larger monitoring networks and improve response coordination. Its compact design and ease of use position it for mobile monitoring programs and rapid assessments. Researchers see broader potential of the platform. Its ability to combine speed, sensitivity, and simplicity could support future innovations in environmental diagnostics. The same concept may expand to detect other biomarkers, opening new possibilities for public health monitoring. Up next, Luxembourg becomes second country worldwide to enshrine abortion rights in constitution. From luxtimes.lu, Luxembourg lawmakers on Tuesday voted to enshrine the freedom to have an abortion in the country's constitution. The amendment makes Luxembourg only the second country in the world to protect women's reproductive rights in its highest laws in response to the U.S. Supreme Court's reversal of Roe v. Wade in 2022, which had granted access to abortions nationwide. France had led the way in 2024. Slovenia's constitution includes the freedom of choice for the birth of children, including the right of objection. The country copied this provision upon its independence in 1991 from Yugoslavia's 1974 text. Still, the country has more restrictive abortion laws, and the procedure is available on demand only until the 10th week of pregnancy. We see throughout the world that women's rights are in the firing line, said Mark Baum, adding that populist, right-wing, and fascist regimes are wielding their might by exercising power over women. This vote in the chamber is historic. It is also about what side of history we are on. It is whether we are willing and capable to defend out democratic values. Out of 60 members in Parliament, 56 cast their vote, with proxy votes not allowed for a constitutional amendment. A majority of 48 lawmakers backed the change, with 6 people voting against it and 2 members of the Parliament abstaining. Luxembourg's left-wing party, Die Lenk, in 2024 submitted a proposal to the Chamber of Deputies to add the right to an abortion to the Grand Duchy's constitution. A draft law submitted in May 2025 received the State Council's approval in June. The State Council, Luxembourg's de facto upper chamber must review all draft laws to ensure they are legally sound and comply with the Constitution. Freedom or right. The proposal by Die-Link to enshrine a right to an abortion was reworded into the freedom to have an abortion during the legislative process. Parties have squabbled over the wording, with majority parties in Parliament on Tuesday saying that the Constitution enshrines both freedoms and rights. While freedoms represent an absence of government interference, fundamental rights create duties for the state to uphold, Carol Hartman said. The freedom to have an abortion would guarantee that women have a choice. However, that freedom is governed by laws, she said. A two-thirds majority in Parliament is needed to amend the Constitution, with advocates of Tuesday's vote saying that this would help protect women's bodily autonomy in the long term and make reproductive rights less vulnerable to changes in the political landscape. Hartman, speaking on behalf of the DP group in Parliament, said that each of the party's 14 members in Parliament would vote according to their own conscience. DP lawmaker Gerard Schachmel had opposed guaranteeing a right to abortion, saying it does not take into account the rights of the unborn child. He also described the debate as being spurred by what he called ruthless feminist ideology. Ooh, tell us you make women dry harder. Other parties on Tuesday also said that they were not enforcing a single position for their lawmakers. Luxembourg's Christian Democrat CSV had previously decided to support the proposal, with Speaker Laurent Zemet on Tuesday saying the vote was for the people, reflecting changes in society and going with the times. His remarks came after criticism from right-wing MP Fred Kipp, who had questioned the party's conservative credentials during his speech. Up next, Etsy bans animal fur as industry sentiments continue to shift. From FashionUnited.com. Etsy is set to ban the sale of all animal fur from August 2026 following a 50-plus day protest campaign by the Coalition to Abolish the Fur Trade, CAFT. The global online marketplace for handmade and vintage goods has updated its animal products policy as part of its broader shift in its sustainability pillars and confirmed the changes in a separate email to CAFT. In addition to prohibiting the sale of products made from animal species that are threatened or endangered from August 11, 2026, Etsy will also ban all products made from or containing natural fur from animals killed for their pelts. Regardless of age or origin, Etsy animal products policy notes that this includes goods such as raw pelts, finished garments, and accessories made with real fur from animals such as mink, fox, and rabbit, but does not include taxidermy or byproduct animal materials like leather, wool, or sheepskin. Current fur sellers on Etsy have already been notified of the updated policy and made aware of their listings will be removed in the future. The decision is said to follow a 58-day campaign led by CAFT that included more than 50 protests of Etsy and its affiliates across 17 cities, including a disruption of Etsy's presentation at the Morgan Stanley Technology, Media, and Telecom Conference in San Francisco on March 3rd. In response to Etsy's policy change, Susie Stork, executive director of CAFT, said in a statement, Etsy's policy sets a new standard for online retailers. Fur is losing, designers are dropping it, publications are not promoting it, and now Etsy, one of the world's largest e-commerce marketplaces, is banning it. The industry has nowhere left to hide. CAF's attention is now fully directed at Milan Fashion Week and LVMH. All designers and affiliates who work with Milan Fashion Week should be paying close attention. Good news, and good to see them not banning the leather or other products. As an Indigenous person. And lastly, for this episode's articles, I said weeks several times already. I'll get there. We have nearly half of U.S. data centers planned for 2026 are facing delays or cancellation. From techspot.com, American AI companies are racing to build as many data centers as they can, but limits in domestic manufacturing and energy supply are slowing progress. As a result, only about half of recent projects are meeting completion targets, and it remains unclear how many more will stay on schedule this year. Analysts at Sightline Climate estimate that between 30 and 50% of all AI data centers planned for deployment in the U.S. this year will be delayed or canceled. The main constraints are difficulty sourcing key electrical equipment and securing enough power to operate new facilities. Across 140 construction projects, data centers representing at least 16 gigawatts of capacity are slated to come online before the end of 2026. However, only 5 gigawatts are currently under construction, and typical build times range from 12 to 18 months. Another 16 gigawatts remain in the announced stage with no clear signs of progress. Citeline's outlook also reflects last year's trends when manufacturers delayed 26% of announced capacity and pushed back commercial operations for another 10%. Looking ahead, projects scheduled for 2027 exceed 25 gigawatt, but less than 10 gigawatt is currently being built. Insufficient power grids remain a central bottleneck. The energy demands of AI workloads have drawn increasing scrutiny, particularly in communities near proposed sites where residents have seen their energy bills increase. A recent Pew Research survey found that Americans are wary of AI data centers due to environmental and energy concerns, while still expressing cautious optimism about potential job creation. Many of the planned facilities are expected to rely on a mix of local grid power and independent sources, including nuclear and renewable energy. Hardware supply is another constraint. AI data centers have already shaken the foundations of the consumer technology market by diverting production capacity of memory, storage, and CPUs, raising prices for those components and for devices that depend on them, such as PCs and game consoles. However, Bloomberg reports that fundamental electrical components such as batteries and transformers are also a crucial obstacle. Despite efforts by the Trump administration to reshore manufacturing, largely through steep tariffs on China and other exporters, U.S. production capacity still falls short of the AI sector's needs. For now, that leaves American AI companies continue to rely on Chinese companies to fill the gap. Go China! In addition to our regular stories, this week we are starting the Wheel of Good Fortune. If there are less than 10 articles each episode, then we spin the wheel to report on old articles that have been missed or were not found in time for the original broadcast. This will allow the show to happen twice weekly and bring more good news into your life. Currently, there are 19 stories waiting in the missed queue. Wheel spins this week were as follows: 1, 7, and 3. Our first Wheel of Good Fortune article is Toucans reintroduced 50 years ago dispersed seeds of endangered trees in Brazil, from the 17th of March, 2026 on news.mangabay.com. More than 50 years ago, the aerial toucan was reintroduced to Tijuca National Park, the world's largest urban forest, located in Rio de Janeiro in southern Brazil. Now, a new study finds that the bird, which became locally extinct in the 1960s, has almost entirely settled back into its original role in the ecosystem, serving as a critical species for forest restoration. Researchers tracked aerial toucans through the Tijuca forest for a full year, logging every plant species it consumed compared with a list of 101 native plant species the bird had historically interacted with. The research team often walked more than 20 kilometers, 12.4 miles a day through the forest, observing the toucan's dietary habits. They found that the bird, recognized for its colorful feathers and signature black beak, had interactions with at least 76% of the plants historically on the menu for aerial toucans. They are such sociable and intelligent beings, the way that they are able to handle fruit. Sometimes it has a hard capsule on the outside, and they hold it with their little feet and open it with their beaks. Lead author Flavia Zaguri, an urban ecology researcher at the Federal University of Rio de Janeiro, told Manga Bay by phone. They have an incredible ability to access these resources. They were observed feeding on the fruits and seeds of plants that few other animals can crack open, potentially making them key dispersers for endangered trees, including the Jussara palm and the Bicuba branca. Both are native trees nationally classified as endangered and have lost more than half their range. The Jussara palm, a species in danger of extinction, was one of its favorites. I think it was the fine champion, the one it ate the most, Zaguri said. Other recent reintroduced animals include red-rumped agoutis and brown howler monkeys. Researchers found minimal dietary overlap with the toucans, indicating that the birds hold a functional uniqueness in the park's ecosystem, particularly in relation to plants with larger seeds, Zaguri added. While toucans interacted with 76% of the plants on the full list, they interacted with nearly 90% of the plants that have medium and large seeds, more than 6 millimeters or 0.2 inches. The aerial toucan was reintroduced in 1970 when primatologist Adelmar Coimbra Filho reintroduced 76 individuals inside Tijuca Park as part of an effort to restore fauna in the degraded forest. Since then, the released birds have been left largely unmonitored. The new study is among the first to evaluate the reintroduction of more than half a century on. Zaguri said a lot remains unknown, including how much the aerial toucans contribute to the dispersal of a different plant species and reforestation. It's pretty much a blank canvas. There is so much we still don't know, Zaguri added. And our second Wheel of Good Fortune article is Trawling Ban Sparks Marine Recovery, also from the 17th of March 2026 on BBC.com. A conservation project is reporting increased Black Sea bream and mussel beds stretching more than a kilometer 5 years since a ban on bottom trawling. Sussex Kelp Recovery Project, SKRP, said a quiet but powerful transformation is unfolding beneath the waves since its launch half a decade ago. The project followed the introduction of a bylaw in 2021 protecting a 117 square mile, 302 square kilometer area between Shoreham and Selsey in West Sussex. SKRP Kelp Recovery Coordinator George Short said, "It's given me enormous joy to see this sign of hope in what is a time of really difficult environmental change." She said that the observed mussel beds were really important because this is one of the habitats that the protection was put in place to recover. Bream had been particularly vulnerable to trawling because they make their nests on the seabed, Short said, but video surveys were detecting increases in numbers. She said one video survey has recorded 92 species. The Kelp Recovery Coordinator told the BBC that restored habitats brought benefits like storm and erosion protection and supported sustainable fisheries. According to Sussex Wildlife Trust, 96% of the country's kelp forests in the late 1970s had disappeared by 2019. The Sussex Inshore Fisheries and Conservation Authority, IFCA, nearshore trawling bylaw prohibited bottom trawling in the designated area, which the trust said gave habitats the breathing space they needed to recover. Sussex IFCA said it had actively enforced and monitored the impact of the bylaw and that compliance with the bylaw had been very good. Short said the project had received a lot of reports from local fishers and local freedivers that had fed into the research and monitoring. Dr. Ray Ward, leader in environmental science at Queen Mary University in London, said rewilding doesn't happen overnight, but that seeing increases in a commercially important species like the Black Sea bream through our underwater video surveys is a promising start. And the last article for this episode from the Wheel of Good Fortune, Dutch court bans XAI's Grok from generating non-consensual nude images. Originally published 26th of March, 2026. A Dutch court has ordered Elon Musk's XAI to stop generating and distributing nude images of people without their consent in the Netherlands, warning it would impose fines of €100,000, 115,350 USD per day for non-compliance. The Amsterdam District Court ruled Thursday that XAI's Grok artificial intelligence tool and the X platform that hosts it were barred from generating and or distributing sexual imagery featuring people partially or wholly stripped naked without having given their explicit permission. The decision in a civil suit was one of the first times a judge has weighed in on XAI's responsibility for creating tools that can be used to create sexualized images amid a flood of complaints and investigations over Grok in the Americas, Europe, Asia, and Australia. Grok was launched by Musk in 2023 and distributed through his social media platform X, which is now part of his rocket and space exploration company, SpaceX. Off Limits, a Dutch center monitoring online violence, took legal action in cooperation with the nonprofit Victims Support Fund over a Grok feature allowing users to ask it to create hyper-realistic deepfake montages of naked women and children using real photos. At a hearing this month, XAI lawyers had argued it was impossible to guarantee that abuse on its platform could be prevented and the company should not be punished for the actions of malicious users. They said the company had taken measures in January to prevent Grok from editing images of real people in revealing clothing, including restricting its image creation features to paid subscribers. That doesn't sound like stopping it. The court website said the judge had decided that Off Limits had shown there was a reasonable doubt over the effectiveness of the measures taken to date. For example, Off Limits managed to produce a video of a nude person using Grok shortly before the hearing, it stated. Off Limits director Robert Hoving said the burden is on the company to make sure its tools are not used to create and distribute non-consensual sexual images, including of children. Earlier on Thursday, the European Parliament approved a ban on artificial intelligence systems generating sexualized deepfakes after a global outrage over non-consensual Grok-produced nudes. Sounds like a good law. And that is the end of this week's articles. hopefully they added a little positive joy to your life. Before we end, I have our final segment of the show, something I like to call a tale of two paragraphs. In this segment, I take the first and last paragraph from an article on Substack or another similar source and read them to you. To encourage you to go read the article yourself, many people forget the power of the written word to move us and how intriguing the middle of the story is. The less I read, the better, but people often want to know how we got to endings more than the ending themselves, and maybe then you will go exploring the Substack and read the paragraphs in between. This week's article is from the Oldster magazine Substack, entitled What I Did for Love, number 2, Say It Out Loud, and comes from oldster.substack.com. We get through life not by telling ourselves stories, but by looking away from the accumulating evidence of the truth about ourselves. A memoir puts witnesses into your past life, as if you said, "Hey you, I will haul you out of your today and put you squarely in my yesterday. I will make you watch what happened 10,000 days ago, 20,000 days ago, and I will make you feel what I felt." But the witnesses noticed the things you avoided during the writing and the rewriting. It was only when my memoir was finally written, rewritten, proofed, edited, and published that I knew I'd failed the love test. A few paragraphs in between, and an ending of, when his wife died, 2 years later, I felt compassion for my old friend. I sent condolences. He wrote back. There was a silence for a few months. I thought no more of it, until we began to speak on the phone. And behind every polite kindness were the words I didn't say. I love you. We married 5 years ago, in an empty town hall in the middle of a snowy field, with 6 masked witnesses and a judge. I was 72. He was 74. I had waited 20,000 days. We hope you enjoyed our show, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. And until next time, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, so I won't. Have a good day.